Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the Dungeon Dive, we kind of have a low energy, maybe a low effort style video. At the time of recording this, I am feeling just a little bit under the weather. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for a kind of Dungeon Dive show and tell episode. And I have some stacks of things here and a few more things off the table. And we'll just kind of take a look at all of this stuff and talk very, very briefly about it. Think of this as kind of your preview episode of some of the things that you might see in the weeks and months to come on the channel. And if you see something that you'd like to know more about, let me know in the comments and I will try to prioritize a video on that thing. First of all, the main thing or the thing you're going to see coming up very soon, and this was voted on by the Dungeon Dive patrons, is a deep dive into Clix Madness, the Hexplore It narrative campaign. So I haven't played this yet, and I asked which kind of big game the Dungeon Dive patrons would like to see. And Clix Madness overwhelmingly won with the support. So we will be doing some videos on this, kind of the learning process, what it's all about. We'll do some sample gameplay turns, and then I'll discuss the game. I think we'll do probably 2 to 3 episodes on Clix Madness. I'm going to spend kind of an entire week with the game and see what develops. So I am looking forward to this. It seems like a pretty cool book. It seems pretty overwhelming with a lot of the things that you need to add on top of Hexplore It, which can already be a somewhat fiddly game. But anyways, okay, let's start looking at some stuff. Let's start the show and tell. This is some things that I have gotten over the last year or so, maybe the last few months. Some things have been provided to the channel for review coverage, so we will definitely be taking a look at those. One of those here is Between Lights and Shadow, a solo roll and write dice adventure, and this is called Chapter 1 Dawn. This was sent to me by the Board Game Raccoon. And I've been following this game for a long time on Kickstarter, Facebook, on their Facebook page. And this will be available to order in English soon from their website. And it is a very complex roll and write game, probably the most complex roll and write I've seen. No, I have not played that one that everybody talks about, the Walls of Haldoran, something like that. I know that's a pretty complex roll and write, but this one does seem like it's kind of up there with the kind of bookkeeping and things you need to keep track of, but it seems really cool and creative. So I am looking forward to taking a look at that. This is a game that I meant to back and I completely forgot to finalize my pledge or something, but I did pick this up retail and I picked it up on the website, and that is called The Zone, Surreal Play to Lose Horror RPG. So this says that the Zone is a tabletop role-playing game about doomed expedition into a mysterious quarantine zone whose center will grant one survivor their deepest wish. So I think this is more of an interactive story game. I don't know if I would call it a role-playing game. It feels more like an interactive story. There aren't really any mechanisms. You tell a collaborative story, and you're using various decks of cards in order to do so. We have these foil cards here. Wow, that light really... the light I record with really picks up these holographic foil images. But these are some of the characters that you play, so you will have different types of characters, and you will deal those out to the players. There is kind of an oracle deck here, and you have no, yes, no, and no, no, but, and things like that, but they will give you some additional prompts. And then you have a whole bunch of different locations, and you will be creating kind of a trail of locations that you are working through in order to get to the center of the zone. Think of Stalker or Roadside Picnic, that kind of stuff. And then we have our manual. It's a big part of the game is your body mutating. So it's there's lots of body horror here. And then also there's a book of twists, and these twists are different ways to play the game, each one written by a different author. It seems like a really cool package. the game mechanisms are really light. It is more of an interactive storytelling game. And so playing it solo, I'm not sure how well that will work. You can definitely play it solo. But what I'm looking forward to doing is using the stuff in here, using the cards, using the rules for the collaborative storytelling, using that as a basis for a solo RPG for me to add mechanisms onto. And it does encourage you to do that in the manual. And so I'm thinking of kind of trying out my game, A Land in Peril, those mechanisms with a non-fantasy setting and seeing how that works. So that is the zone. I'll definitely be showing more of that on the channel because I think it's pretty interesting. I did also, of course, pick up Vermis 2. So we will be taking a closer look at this. Now, one thing I was pretty disappointed with in Vermis 2 is that it is a completely different shape than Vermis 1. And I like it when I have a series of books. I really like it when they're on my shelf and they're all the same size. But I recognize that this is kind of an art project. And so I think it was part of the artist's vision to just have it be a completely different size. It's more like a square book. Now, true to my review, I still haven't finished reading Vermis 1. I'm taking my time with it. As soon as I finish it, we will do a flip through and discussion on Vermis 2. Recently, I did a review of a game called Whale, and W-A-I-L, and I really liked Whale a lot. You're going to be seeing it again on the channel, or maybe not. I might do a Patreon exclusive video on a playthrough on Whale. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that on YouTube or not, but we will see. But Myst is a game designed by the same creator, and Mark Cook, and I got this physical copy from his Etsy shop. And this is a little pamphlet game, a little pamphlet hex crawl. And so this will definitely be featured on the channel soon because I want to talk about kind of what you need, what's the bare minimum you need for an engaging experience. Maybe we'll take a look at this and something like Business Card Dungeon Dive or Business Card Dungeon Delve in the same episode and talk about kind of really minimalist games. Now, we have taken a look at the channel of Miro before, an analog horror game, and this is Miro 2. This was provided to the Dungeon Dive as a review copy. So this is kind of the sequel of Miro, and it kind of updates some things. It seems a little more robust than the original Miro. I hope that the rules are a little more concise, but I think this looks really interesting. So we'll be taking a look at that possibly in the future. Another thing I think I got this from Exalted Funeral, I think, but this is called Weird Dungeon. And this is a little, made with the Weird framework by Disaster Tourism. The combat is lean, deadly, and compatible with all other Weird games. So I'm not too familiar with the Weird framework, so I need to look more about that. But this is a system to generate random dungeon crawls. And I thought this would be pretty useful to use with other systems. So we'll see if this does generate some cool dungeons to be used. Maybe I'll try running A Land in Peril using this. Another follow-up here is the Demon Lord expansion for 12 Years. And 12 Years is a indie little hex crawl game that we have taken a look at on the channel before. It was pretty cool, but I thought that it needed some more variety. If you guys remember, I kept running into the same encounters over and over again. And hey, remember when I was talking about in my last video, or maybe 2 videos ago, about making mistakes when you're folding zines? And look, this is one that I bought, and like it's kind of messed up. So don't really worry about it. The pages did not get folded very evenly. And you can see there's a lot of offset there. But you know what? It doesn't really bother me too much. Things happen, especially with these kind of indie games. Maybe this was hand folded. I'm not sure if Max Moon, or maybe it was just cut wrong. I might want to put that through my my cutter there and just kind of straighten up the edges. I think that would probably work. But I haven't taken a look too closely at this. I'm kind of waiting to do a video on this one to keep it a surprise because I think, oh my God, that is so tiny. Jeez. So these are the complete quick references. And I'm probably going to need to access my digital files for this game and print these on full 8.5 by 11 because, man, yeah, that is very, very, very small text. My eyes are getting older, guys. I can barely, I really can't read at all with my glasses anymore. It's kind of sad. But all right, and speaking of Mark Cook, we have another one of his games. So this is another game that I got off of his Etsy shop, and mainly because I liked whales so much. And this is called Fade Beyond the Veil, a tabletop miniatures game. So this is a small skirmish game. And you guys know that I've been getting more and more into these little kind of indie narrative skirmish games. And so this one, it looks quite similar, I think, to something like Forbidden Psalm, maybe a little, even a little more simple than that. But looking forward to at least checking that out. The next thing here is Delve Biomes. So Delve Biomes, this is a PDF that I made into a zine. This is the biggest zine I have made at 90 pages, or 89, including the front and back covers. And this thing is very fat here. I couldn't even trim that up with my guillotine cutter. It's too thick to slide through the guide there. But this is a big zine. And this is an expansion to Delve created by Anna Blackwell. And we have taken a look at on the channel at Delve before. I really liked it, kind of a map drawing game. And this was purchased for the Dungeon Dive by a Dungeon Dive patron because he wanted me to check out this. I haven't gotten to it yet, but this will definitely be on the channel in the near future. This I'm really excited about. I backed this on Kickstarter. I thought it looked really interesting. And this is called You Meet in a Tavern, You Die in a Dungeon. And we have 3 different books. It also comes with a little poster here. Some kind of little fantasy comic strip. I love that. And then we have 3 different books. So we have the Dungeon Manual. We have the Dungeoneer's Handbook. So this is basically your player's handbook. And then we have your Dungeon Keeper's Guide, your Dungeon Master's Guide. And so you will create a character with different types of classes, of course, very traditional fantasy. And then you will take those characters into a dungeon. And you can play a full kind of traditional mode of a dungeon crawl. This is a pure dungeon crawl. And you can also play solo. There are ways to run the dungeon solo. What I think is really cool also is that the Kickstarter version did come with a deck of cards, and these cards can be used to create your dungeon with all kinds of different traps and different hazards and different encounters and things to discover. Seems like a really cool package. It seems like a nice, complete little indie package for a traditional fantasy dungeon crawl. So that is definitely something that you will be seeing on the channel very, very soon. And a different kind of dungeon crawl here. This was provided to the channel by the folks over at Crumbling Keep. And this is a preview copy of the new expansion coming out for Marching Order. And some people for Marching Order have wanted more ways to just create random dungeons and to have kind of a random dungeon crawl mode. This is that. It's called Neck Deep, the Sewers of Rot Bottom. So this is all different ways to create your random sewer crawl using the rules for Marching Order. So we'll be taking a look at this, and we'll also be taking a look at some of the newer Marching Order stuff that has come out in the last couple of years. Dungeon. This is a frustrating book here. I backed this on Kickstarter. I thought it looked really interesting. The whole thing is kind of set up as a long lost and discovered MUD, a multi-user dungeon, a kind of an old MMO style game from back in the DOS days and the ASCII days. However, I think the theme is really cool. I think the rules are really cool, but the book is so hard to use because the binding is so tight. It's a perfect bound hardback, and the gutters are so thin. The gutters are so narrow that tons of the page is completely cut off. Like, I can't really read what's in column 3 there. Sometimes more than, if I look up like, where was that one page here? Sometimes complete words get cut off, like here, tutorial town, I guess that spells town. but it's really hard to use, and you have to really crack open the spine to see down into the gutter. And in some of the tables, I've noticed complete columns get cut off, and it's very, very difficult to read. It doesn't stay open at all. Just, yeah, I'm not sure what kind of binding or where the binding was done, but I know some people have brought this up. I asked about it on Kickstarter, thinking that maybe I had a misprint, that the gutters were too narrow. But yeah, it's a little frustrating. I wish this was easier to use. I'm not sure if I got a PDF copy with my physical backing. Maybe I did, and if I did, I'll print one out because it does seem interesting. It's just frustrating to use because the binding is so tight and the gutters are so narrow. That seems to happen too frequently with independently produced things, is those narrow gutters. I know I've talked about that a couple of times with some things that I have purchased from DriveThruRPG. So designers, just make your gutters a little, be a little more liberal with the space in your gutters. Just, it makes things easier to read. So this I just bought. It seems really interesting. Much more robust than I was imagining or thinking when I first saw it. And this is called The Vast in the Dark, and this is the expanded version from Charlie Ferguson Avery. And this is a whole way to create weird hex crawls in this kind of underground, deep within the bowels of an earth, kind of a subterranean hex crawl in an area that is completely devoid of light. And there are some rules for adapting different characters and different systems to use this, and then ways to generate your delves, to generate the various locations and the things that you will find in the vast dark. It seems very atmospheric and weird and spooky, and so I'm looking forward to checking this out and discovering what we can find in the dark. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, one thing I am super interested and so excited for is the new Space Aces, Voyages in Infinite Space, and that does come with a Galaxy in a Box. So this was provided to the channel by the designer. The Galaxy in a Box are tiles that you can use to create your galaxies, to have your galaxy hex crawls, and each one of these planets on each one of these tiles has a section in the book that has all kinds of details about things and people and places and adventures that you can have on that planet. Even though the book is much bigger than the original Space Aces, the rules themselves for running the game, for creating your character, for doing tests and challenges have been even more streamlined, more stripped down. To tell you the truth, I prefer the actual rules, the actual mechanisms in the small zine. So I'm going to use the older rules, I think, when I play this game. But if you want a game system that will allow you to just have huge random space adventures and hex crawls, this game looks awesome. I'm super, super excited to get into this. Another game that was provided to the channel, I requested a review copy of the Walking Dead role-playing game from Free League. And this will be on the channel soon. I think this looks really cool. I wanted to kind of experiment with some other things that aren't just fantasy, because fantasy is my wheelhouse. That's where I am most comfortable. That's where I like spending my free time, in fantasy worlds. I'm not a huge Walking Dead fan, but I do like zombie fiction and zombie cinema and things. And I think this will make for a really interesting game. I like the system. It's kind of based off of the Mutant Year Zero or Tales from the Loop system, I believe. But what's really cool about this, the book isn't very fat or very thick, 164 pages. So it seems to have a lot of lore, a lot of good art, and the mechanisms seem pretty straightforward. But what I am really excited about are the solo rules written by Matt Kay. And the solo rules, guys, I'm telling you, this game has some amazing solo rules. It's very structured. It almost feels board game-like. You have all kinds of different ways to upgrade your settlement and to develop relationships with different people in your settlement. and all kinds of ways to generate different kinds of adventures of going out and scavenging. And then it also comes with a ton of random tables that you can roll up, different types of locations and different things that you can find. So it seems very, very solo friendly, and I think the system is going to run really well. And I'm looking forward to diving into the Walking Dead universe. All right, what do we have next? Here we have a few zines that I picked up, I think from 1 or 2 years ago from Zen Quest. But I did pick up Exploring Dungeons 1, 2, and 3. I think 3 was the new one, and then they offered reprints of 1 and 2. I haven't looked very deeply into these yet, so I'll do a read of these, and then we can discuss these. These are just kind of little tools and charts and prompts and things that you can plug into any kind of a fantasy adventure game there. And then we have Explore Dungeons number 3. Alrighty. In that bundle, I also got a Smorgasbord. So this is a new zine for Morkborg, a disgusting buffet of vile delights for your campaign. So it looks like I might have some good information there. And then this is for D&D 5e, but I figured I could use it for anything. This is called Tales from the Tower. And again, it's just different things that you can use for your games. So I thought these might come in handy, and there might be, maybe if there's just 1 or 2 charts in each one of these, that might be helpful. Another game that was provided to the channel, the creator of Lichdom contacted me and said, "Hey, I just want to send you my book Lichdom from Drive-Thru, and no strings attached, but I thought it looked really cool." And this is a pretty in-depth kind of journaling solo RPG, all about you play a lich and you are trying to gain immortality. And so you work through a series of prompts and challenges trying to become a lich lord. And the game also does come with, or you can buy on Drive-Thru, the Deck of Power, or let's see, Reject Death, Embrace Power, the Deck of Doom. And so this can help you in playing. And I thought that these could also be used just for cool cards for when you need a deck of cards for any kind of dark fantasy game or something like that. I like themed decks of cards, and a deck of cards, like I've said before, is my favorite tool to use, a deck of playing cards. It's so simple and it can be used for so many different things. So I'm really looking forward to checking this out. I've heard really good things from people. And see the book here, that has a not super tight spine. It actually opens and the gutters are good. So yeah, I wish Dungeon had this binding. That would be so much better. Maybe we could get the Dungeon files uploaded to Drive-Thru or something and then order a book like this. I think I like Dungeon enough to just buy a better version of that book. This is a game, a book of lore that was provided to the channel from Shield Dice Studio, friend of the channel. Shield Dice is a Dungeon Dive patron, and of course the creators of not Table Fables but Realm Fables, and also the scenario generator, the sandbox generator. We've taken a look at all kinds of stuff. The campaign deck of cards. I love Shield Dice stuff. They make really good stuff. I've been a supporter of theirs for a long time. They are a supporter of the Dungeon Dive. But we have taken a look. I did a review for Lore, or Loom, I should say, and I was a backer of Loom. And Jay over at Shield Dice, he sent the printed copies to me because I just had the PDF. But this book here is awesome. This is kind of like Vermis. This is kind of like Vermis 1 and Vermis 2. And this is an entire book of lore about this game. And if you guys remember the review for Loom, it is simulating an old school text adventure game that you might play on like a Commodore 64 or an old Apple IIe or something. And this is kind of like a book of lost lore about that game. And just super cool. I wish more games just had books of lore. I don't know if there's any real gameplay things in here, but I think if you read this and if you really got into Loom, that you would get a lot out of this and it would help augment your games. Look at that. I love the cheesy old kind of 80s fantasy art Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, this is a really neat book. And so it's just lore. It's just different things that you can read about the world. It does have some dungeons in there. You might be able to use those. You could probably use these as a kind of a source book for other RPGs. But lots of really cool, neat stuff in here. So that is called lore, and I believe these physical editions are available through Drive-Thru RPG, and there are also PDF versions. Okay, we're going to end this video today with a look at some new kind of bigger box board games, because it's not just little indie games that I've received over the past year or so. So let me go grab some. So this is one of my most recent purchases. I know this game is enjoying a little bit of popularity right now, and it seems really cool, from GMT Games, and that is the Plum Island Horror. And this kind of feels like maybe a simplified, hopefully a simplified, maybe easier version of Dawn of the Zeds, 3rd edition. I think this looks really cool. It's kind of a tower defense game where you are playing as a faction and you are trying to protect your city from the mutants and horrors and all kinds of things. So the factions are really cool. You have things like the Neighborhood Watch or NPC units, the National Guard, the security team, a Plum Island Constabulary. Here are the different kinds of creatures that you'll be fighting. And then we have the Athletics Club. So it has more of a comical style. I love that old horror comic look, like the EC comic look there. So really looking forward to playing Plum Island. It is completely soloable. As a matter of fact, it's rated high on the solo chart here. So solitary ability high, complexity low. Hey, that is perfect for the dungeon dive. Low complexity, my kind of game. So about a year ago, I did a preview video for a crowdfunding campaign for Arcadia Tabra, and the designer sent me one of the final versions of the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much more was developed. My box got really beat up in the shipping. They did the shrink wrapping by hand. They packaged it by hand. This is a real kind of passion project, an effort of love. Each game got a signed thank you card inside. So they did a lot of work. It's very indie. It's not very, like, the components aren't much better than the prototype components. The cards are really thin. And this is like a total indie little board game. They call it an RPG in a box. I'm looking forward to seeing how much of this was expanded, how much was honed, and if it plays better, because I liked the overall vibe and I thought it had a lot of good ideas. It just had some rough edges. So I'm hoping some of those rough edges got smoothed over. And we got a couple of big dungeon crawls. So I was not a backer of Dungeon Saga Origins. I was not a fan of the original Dungeon Saga. I sold that right about when I started the Dungeon Dive. But this is the Legendary Edition, so you can still get this. And this contains all of the expansions and everything from the Kickstarter all in one big box. So you get your first campaign, and then there are 4 expansions. And it seems like a very simple game. They're kind of going for that simplistic game style again. I would probably put this right next to Hero Quest. I've heard this does play better solo or cooperatively out of the box, especially better than the original Dungeon Saga did. So last night I opened this up and took a look at everything, and it looks really nice. I think the tiles are really cool. So we'll definitely be seeing more of Dungeon Saga Origins on the channel. Another game that was sent to the channel for review, I contacted them after watching Jeremy Howard's coverage of the game. He really liked this game, Jeremy Howard from Man vs. Meeple. And a lot of the things I enjoy, a lot of the genre things I enjoy are based off of mythologies from the world religions. I know one of my favorite authors is William Peter Blatty, and most of his fiction is religious apologetics. Books like Philip K. Dick's Divine Invasion and Valis are all based off of Christian mythology. And then we have like the Canticle for Leibowitz. Religious science fiction is one of my favorite subgenres of science fiction. And then we have things like Journey to the West, which is based off of Buddhism and Eastern religion. So the world's religions have informed a lot of genre entertainment. I mean, just look at God of War, right? So this Deliverance is kind of a tabletop skirmish board game that is influenced by Christian mythology. And this is kind of a big game where you are playing as angels and you are fighting demons to try to save the souls of the saints in this city. And it seems really cool. I like the system. The art is really nice and it's a really cool package. So I'm looking forward to checking more of that out. And finally, one more big game, and I was a backer of this. I have done some coverage of this, some preview coverage, but man, I am so looking forward to diving in to this complete version, and that is Dungeons of Doria. Guys, this thing is just overflowing with stuff. So much loot. How many? 880 cards, loot, events, monsters. It has a whole deck of random things that happens when you open doors. It has a whole book of random events that are all keyed to each tile. So you can play a full kind of random dungeon crawl mode. There are campaigns. I think there are 4 campaigns in here. There's a whole book of standalone scenarios. You can link standalone scenarios to create your own campaign. This thing is just jam-packed with dungeon crawling madness. And I can't wait to really dive in. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with Dungeons of Doria. So, all right, you guys. Well, hey, I hope you enjoyed this kind of show and tell. And hopefully I'm feeling better soon. And I think I'm going to get the Explore It with Clicks Madness all set up and learned so we can spend some real quality time with that and really dive deep into that game and see what it's all about and see if it's worth it and see what kind of stuff that big epic campaign adds to a game that I already love. So all right, you guys, take it easy. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.